I interview millionaires for a living, and throughout my time doing this, I found that they tend to echo the same advice. Hi everyone, my name is Ernestine, and in my years as a business journalist for CNBC, I get paid to basically sit down and interview some of the most successful people in the world. It's like drinking from a fire hose. I get to ask them basically anything I want, but what I'm usually most curious about, obviously, is how they got to where they're at, and I typically hear some version of a couple core pieces of life advice. Tip number one is to lean into what makes us special. Or put a different way, do what we're good at. A lot of times we're told to follow our passion, but what does that even mean, right? Not all of us grow up feeling like we have that one calling that we're very passionate about and that we're very good at. I interviewed one founder, her name's Ann Malum, and she founded a company called Solid Core. She sold her stake in the company for about $88 million, and that was just her stake. During my interview with her, she emphasized the importance of leaning into our uniqueness. She said, by leaning into what makes us special, it tends to work in our favor. All of us are born with different advantages and disadvantages in life, and it's up to all of us to figure out what our skills and talents are and to work on them. Or put in a different way, Ben Horowitz, he is an investor and entrepreneur. He's also the co-founder of the storied venture capital firm Andreessen Horowitz. He said in a famous speech at Columbia University, "Don't follow your passion, follow your contribution." And what he meant by this is that people tend to have multiple passions, and passions can also change over time. What you're passionate about when you're 14 can be very different from what you're passionate about when you're 24. Also, just because you're passionate about it does not necessarily mean that you will be good at it. He made a reference to American Idol. Think about the people who are passionate about singing, but maybe they're not necessarily good at it. So instead, you should follow what you are naturally good at and what you can naturally contribute best to the world. If you think about it, if you are following what you're naturally good at, you're following your contribution, you'll probably get the fulfillment, you will get the success, you will get the joy of watching yourself grow, and you might even get the freedom. You'll get freedom of time, freedom to actually work on your passions and to immerse yourself in things that you love. Tip number two is that anyone can do it. And it sounds like a bit of a cliche. I've also heard this many times, but the truth is, a lot of times when we look at people who are successful, we immediately think that they are special. Maybe they're smarter than us, maybe they have more talent, maybe they grew up with more privilege, or maybe they're lucky. And the list goes on. But a lot of the most successful and rich people that I've interviewed came from many different walks of life. They were immigrants, or they came from a household where there was addiction, or I've spoken to someone who was actually homeless before. One thing that I'm told time and time again is that there will always be things in life that you just can't control. And so instead of focusing on your disadvantages or maybe your circumstance and thinking, oh, the people who are successful are special, just focus on what you can control and just give it a shot. For example, I interviewed Jason McGowan. He is the co-founder of Crumble Cookies. I'm sure you guys know Crumble. They are super viral. And when I interviewed him about a year ago, his company was bringing in about $1 billion a year in revenue. Now, obviously that is massive, right? And he told me that when he started Crumble, he barely knew how to bake a chocolate chip cookie. Literally, he would get in the kitchen after work with his co-founder, Sawyer, who is also his cousin, and they would just experiment. And today he owns a multi-billion-dollar cookie company. So that just goes to show that anyone can do it. Tip number three is that it never gets easier. And this sounds really bleak, but if you want to get to a certain level of success, obviously it's not easy. If it's easy, then everyone would be there, right? I've heard this from multiple people I've interviewed. I've interviewed the co-founder of Caviar, which is a food delivery company based in San Francisco. I also interviewed the co-founder of Grab, which is a big ride-hailing app. If you're in Asia or Southeast Asia, you probably know it. It's very similar to Uber. They both told me that the process of starting a company is extremely difficult, and it actually never gets easier. If anything, as your business grows or as your career grows, so do the problems. So it really actually never gets easier. The only option is to get better at what you're doing. Tip number 4 is to just get started. No amount of planning or overthinking will get you to your goal if you're not actually doing the thing. It sounds so obvious, but I think a lot of us have it backwards. People always think that we have to be prepared in order to get started, but it's quite literally the other way around. And take me, for example. Growing up, I always loved watching my favorite YouTubers, and I preferred watching YouTube over TV or movies. I always dreamt of having my own YouTube channel, but I always just felt like not prepared enough. I felt like I didn't have the right equipment. I didn't know what I wanted my channel to be about. I didn't know what I stood for, what I wanted to talk about. But it wasn't until recently that I created my first YouTube video that I truly realized what it meant to just get started, because it's really not until you get started that you actually figure out those things that you want to learn. A lot of times it's that very first step where we feel the most resistance. It becomes a lot easier after we take that first step to keep going, because we've proven to ourselves that we are able to do it. We've developed that confidence from taking that first step. So that's just my message to all of you today. If there's something that you guys have been wanting to work on, something that's been tugging at your heart, but you just haven't gotten yourself to do it, and it's like creating all this inner frustration, the only way to really get started is to just take that first step, whatever that might look like. It can be very small, but after taking that first step, I promise you it gets a lot easier. Tip number 5 is that beyond your basic needs, no amount of money will ever make you truly happy. And I've heard this from multiple people. One person I interviewed, he sold his company for $100 million when he was in his 20s. And it's like, you dedicate so many years of your life to building this thing. You sacrifice so much in your life, like your entire identity gets tied up in it. And then he actually ends up reaching his goal. He sells his company, and it's actually after that happened, he told me he felt like he lost his sense of purpose. So the lesson is that it should never just be about money. It's fine to want financial freedom because it grants us the ability to spend our time how we want, to take a day off if we need, to not have to worry about our bills, to prioritize in the way that we want to prioritize. But at a certain point, it becomes greed. So at the end of the day, what truly matters to you? What kind of person do you want to be? One investor I chatted with recently put it best. He said, what is the point of working so hard for all this success and all this money just to lose everything else in the process? Your health, your family, your friends, your peace, right? What is the point? If you watch all the way to the end, thank you so much. It really does help my channel a lot. And again, I am very new to YouTube, so I'd really appreciate if you guys could give this video a thumbs up, comment down below what you liked, what you didn't like about this video, what you would like for me to work on next, and hit that subscribe button. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.